that's probably a good title for an off Broadway play. Five drunks and a hooker.
Well, you
You
kind
know,
of have that with this movie tonight. We're talking
we
about.
we kind of, yeah. Hey everyone, how you doing? Oh, it's firing up here in the old spoiler room. Thank you for coming down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and popping your favorite drink with us as we continue our Maniac March with a doozy of a film that now look, when I was picking Maniac movies, I didn't want to do Maniac or the remake of Maniac because that's just too obvious. So I started looking for Maniac films and I ran across this one. And it's from 1976, so it's got a little bit of it's a little bit ancient, almost as ancient as I am. But it's a Shaw production. And tonight we are going to be talking about 1976, The Oily Maniac. And with me tonight to talk about The Oily Maniac, he is back with us. He brought his bar of soap and a towel just so he could stay clean.
Oh, that's not where I thought you were going. Thank you for
We're
veering left.
keeping it clean. We're keeping it clean, but we're going to get dirty with the Oily Maniac. Yes, it's none other than my right-hand man and friend, Mr. Ian Simmons, is here with me tonight. Hello, Ian.
Don't ever say right-hand man and we're going to keep it clean.
That's why I had you bring the soap. Anyway, and a towel. I think he's turning green. Hold on. I got to adjust the color on the monitor. Anyway, how you doing, Ian?
It was great until about 45 seconds ago.
So yes,
I just wanted to preface this by saying I'm not disappointed by Maniac Month because it's been great.
Okay.
We've run the full gamut of quality and genre, and it's been wonderful. But I was a little bit disappointed when Maniac was not on the list because, as with all of these movies we talk about on the spoiler room, it's kind of my opportunity to see a lot of things for the first time. I've never seen Maniac.
What?
I know.
Oh, wow. Well, we'll definitely have another Maniac themed month of some kind. We'll work it in where we'll maybe cover the remake and the original, like back-to-back weeks or something, because just if anything else to give Ian a reason to watch him within his plethora of movies that he has to watch, because after all, he is the Rotten Tomatoes critic and he's got all them Oscar movies to catch up on.
No, I don't.
No, why not?
I know we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and
Yes.
between the day job and just trying to keep up with my own stuff, I've fallen off the ability to. I was able to watch one of those movies that I wanted to catch up on in the last 2.5 weeks.
Belfast?
No. The beta test.
Oh,
Did you see that?
The beta test? I don't think I have. No.
Oh my God. Do you have Hulu?
Yeah, I do.
It's on Hulu. Watch the beta test.
It's a film for the Oscars?
No. But it's a movie I wanted to watch before I finished my best of 21 list.
Okay.
Which should be out this Friday. And I found out it's actually not the latest I've ever put something out. The latest was last year. It came out like end of April.
Oh, okay.
But no, I wanted to watch this movie, and I did. I'm glad because it actually made it onto my list.
Wow.
Yeah,
it is. I will throw that on the list there. Yeah.
Try not to watch the trailer because.
Oh no, I don't. I usually don't. If I miss the trailer in the theater or whatnot, unless it's a bigger film I'm curious about, I usually don't watch the seek out an older film. I'll just watch it. So if you say watch the beta test, I will watch the beta test.
Only thing I'll tell you is it's sort of like American Psycho meets Fatal Attraction.
Oh, okay. You caught me. Yeah, all right. That's good.
Wonderful.
Good. Well, now you hooked me that way.
So sorry, what the hell were we talking about? Oh, The Oily Maniac. Yes.
We're talking The Oily Maniac, which some would say was the subtitle for Basic Instinct. Anyway. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed Basic Instinct. Yeah,
we all did, Mark.
Yeah, we won't go there. Anyway, before we really get rolling, though, happy anniversary to Friday the 13th, Part 5, a new beginning as of today. It is its anniversary. for its release. I do believe I saw it all over my news feed. So it was either yesterday or today, but Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning,
What?
apparently.
Oh, okay. So
It's
it's an
the
off year
anniversary.
though,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Because that came out in '85, I think, right? So,
I don't know. It was just an anniversary. It's an off year
yeah,
though. Yeah, it's not like like a
like a
25th
round number,
anniversary. Yeah,
right?
like around
Okay.
one
I
of
guess
those.
I was
But
totally confused. I'm like, I can't do
no,
math,
no, it's
but I'm
just the
pretty sure.
anniversary. It was just
Yeah.
released. Yeah. So I know a lot of Friday the 13th Part 5 fans out there who may actually listen to the show. So there you go. And including Mr. Ian Simmons.
Oh
So,
yeah.
in honor, we're going to do something a little different. In honor of Friday the 13th Part 5 New Beginning having been released on this date many moons ago, Ian gets to choose, and actually he gets to do the synopsis of Oily Maniac. So you're just going to do the synopsis of Oily Maniac. I know we're doing something a little different this time. So.
I got really excited because I thought you were going to say, in honor of New Beginning, we're not going to talk about the Oily Maniac. Because I want to talk about the Oily Maniac, but I also got excited about talking about Part 5.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get your hopes up too much, but
And I hate
yeah.
you with that bait and switch. Oh, we're going to do something special. You didn't get to do synopsis. Ours is a complicated relationship.
It is. If you don't want to, that's fine. I'll
No.
be happy to.
As long as you don't mind me not trying any of the character names.
No, that's part of the entertainment. No, you don't have to try the character.
Well, here's the thing. I was listening, and I promise to talk about this movie in a second, but over the weekend I was listening to a podcast about monotasking instead of multitasking, the idea of
Okay.
getting so invested in one thing that you're doing that you forget everything else. So I tried that with the Oily Maniac. I usually take extensive notes, including character names, scene to scene stuff, and all this other stuff. And I was like, no, I'm just going to sit down and watch it. And of course, I choose to do it with this 1976 Malaysian subtitled Chopsaki horror movie. I'm like, I don't know who the hell any of these people are.
Now, did you watch it on Amazon or did you watch it? Okay,
I rented it.
You did rent it as well. Okay, cool.
And I should have just bought the damn thing because it's so wonderful. But yeah, it's kind of like it's almost like a proto superhero Toxic Avenger story.
Almost, yeah.
And it's essentially there is, it's a Malaysian Hong Kong production. There's this little town that's rife with corruption. There's a lawyer who's got this girl that he's really, I don't know if he's a lawyer. He's definitely like a paralegal. He's clerking.
He's a paralegal. I don't think he's full lawyer yet, but he's paralegal. He's doing all the busy work for ye lawyer.
Yes, for the head lawyer at this firm who's corrupt beyond all belief. There is I forget the details of it, but there's like this rotten business negotiation, transfer of power in this business that opens the film, and the uncle of this guy's crush gets involved in a skirmish in which he sort of accidentally, not really, kills someone.
He machetes him right into the gut. Oh, oops.
Well, but it was like there was like this big gang fight. It was an attack in an office, and this guy was defending himself, but he ended up killing someone, and that sort of stopped the fight. Everyone was like, "Whoa, wait a second! We had no murder was on the plate." So he gets sent to prison, and in what I don't know how the law works over there, but they've got these weird rules where it's like, okay, he's gonna die in a half hour. Like, wait a second, didn't he just get there? He's already on death row.
Well, they did do like 3 months later or something. So I think there was a trial in there somewhere.
Right, but then like later on, it's like, family members can't testify on behalf of other family members. Like, what?
Yeah, it was.
I know there's some situations where you can't testify against a family member, like a spouse, but yeah, it's all backwards. Anyway, so this uncle guy is about to be put to death. The young lawyer comes in to see him, and he says, "Listen, I've got this giant tattoo on my back of an ancient curse, and I want you to use it, but only use it for good, because it's going to give he doesn't say you, but he says like the person who speaks this curse, it gives them superhuman abilities or something. But if they use it for evil, then they will die horribly." Yes. And so the uncle is put to death. The lawyer kid's paralegals all distraught. and ex or the wannabe girlfriend is like, but I've got this other guy in my life. So paralegal gets drunk and he reads the curse and he sinks into the floor and emerges as this giant, bubbly,
What
oily, drippy monster, right?
he had to dig his hole.
Oh, I had
Remember?
to dig a
That was
hole, right? That's
he
why
was
he's sunk
doing
into the
he
earth.
was drunk and he wanted to do the spell, and so he had to dig his own hole first. So
And I forgot he's got polio.
yeah, he had polio, and so he's got he uses 2 crutches because his one leg is does not function properly.
Yeah, and so, but I don't know how polio works or anything really. So when he's digging that hole, he's like down in there and like using all of his body. But whenever he's not digging a hole in the ground or covering himself in oil, he seems quite capable. Or
He
he doesn't seem quite capable. I mean,
no,
when he's not doing those things.
yeah, he doesn't. Though there's one scene where I think they forgot he had the bad leg.
Just one?
Just at least just one where he forgot he had the bad leg because he ran yay verily to a diesel pump. But that'll be later. Go ahead, keep going.
That's right. I wonder if the oil, like if there's like residual stuff in his body that gives it's kind of like venom. This is Venom.
It's Venom,
Dude, the people who created Venom watched the Oily Maniac and turned him into Spider-Man.
We've got a cross between Venom and Toxic Avenger so far. Yeah,
I didn't even catch that until just now. This movie is amazing. So he comes out and he kind of looks like a black, oily version of the Golgothan from Kevin Smith's Dogma,
Yes,
the giant ship
yes.
monster, complete with like the yellow eyes, and he's got this giant exposed heart. And I also love that the outfit clearly it's supposed to be just like this naked slime monster, but
Yeah.
he's got sleeves. You can see the sleeves on the costume underneath the muck. And he goes out and he exacts revenge on bad people.
Mhm.
Lots of strangulation, lots of throwing people around, some wonderful head stomping. But we'll get into the rest of this. But the high point is he stomps out corruption and evil. But then he kind of has to confront what he's become at the end of the movie.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, it's a morality play. See, no,
It kind of is.
it kind of is. It's I based my pick with this one just off the description because such superhero films are so big now, in the vigilante films and all of that. And then I read this going, and then I looked at the year it was from, and I'm like, 76. I'm like, it aged by Shaw Productions, a vigilante oil monster. How could you go wrong? And in all honesty, this film is fun.
It's fun, but it's got
some caveats. It's got some caveats.
Well, no, it's not I hate the title. I don't know what else you'd call it, but it's one of those titles where it's a great movie, but I don't feel like I can recommend it to anyone. Like, oh, there's this great Malaysian 1976 revenge fantasy that's sort of the prototype for modern superhero maniacs. Awesome. What's it called? The Oily Maniac.
Well, I think part of that is because we've just in the last, number of years had the Greasy Strangler. So, it's which is a fun movie, actually. It
just sounds like something you pay extra for.
Wait, have you not heard of Greasy Strangler? No? Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm too busy going through the filmography of Chloe Zhao. No. Sorry.
You're too busy watching those long slow burn films with shots of rocks and ocean. And yeah. Nothing but love, man. Nothing but love.
A friend of mine the other night, he posted on Facebook, he went to a Bob Dylan concert in what looked to be a very intimate venue, and sitting 4 seats in front of him was Terrence Malick. I nearly shit myself.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, did he pull out any rocks from his pockets or anything? And
he said, here, next time you see Mark, throw them. Anyway.
Back to the oily monster. Yeah, Maniac. Yeah, this film, you're right. You look at stuff, and you watch it now, and I was recognizing some bits, and some other bits seemed way too familiar. I didn't grab the vinyl off of my shelf, but I do have part of the soundtrack to
Really?
The Oily Maniac. Yeah.
Is it part of a compilation of like Shaw music or something, or what
Well,
is it?
no, it's the soundtrack to Jaws. Yes, folks, the Oily Maniac. So this gentleman, he gets this spell and he becomes the Oily Maniac and he goes on his vendetta run. And I kid you not, it's 1976, okay? They try their best. They actually do some kind of creative things for back then, with especially probably the budget they had, to where he actually gets into an oil blob occasionally, and that's how he travels, like gets into places and everything. It's actually kind of cool, even though the animation is a bit cheesy. You got to realize it's 76.
Yeah.
But whenever the Oily Maniac, instead of coming up with his own theme, they use the first 4 bars of the Jaws theme.
So they use the Jaws
on
theme.
loop. they use the dun, just the first part, but just when you get to the dun dun dun, dun, they cut it off and they loop it back to the dun 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 dun. And I'm just
there's
like,
also a bit of Bernard Herrmann's Psycho in there, like kind of fused with it.
yeah.
I'm picking up on these things because I'm reading a book about horror movie scores right now, and
Oh,
so
nice.
I was really attuned to the music in this movie, and I forgot. I did end up taking some notes. I cheated.
You did. You
But
cheated.
I did make some Jaws reference notes.
It
But
does.
I'll forgive it because it's Jaws came out in 75, like the year
Yeah,
before this. So
year
that just
before
shows how
this.
powerful an influence John Williams' score was for that. They're like, we're gonna rip this off now.
We're gonna rip it off, but we're only gonna borrow this much, so we can't get in trouble because they can't say for sure that we're borrowing the whole sound cue. So we're just gonna steal the first 4 bars of the theme.
Plus, it's a Malaysian movie from 1976. You're like, it's gonna be decades before anybody in America finds out what we did.
And that's true. You're absolutely right, because back then, I mean, if you're talking about a foreign film, they weren't exactly widely distributed in the US, and they weren't exactly on the radar. There's not exactly some Hollywood executive going, uh-oh, there's this one film called The Oily Maniac. It made $1.50 and they're stealing the Jaws. They're gonna be like, what hell? You know, they're not even on their radar back then, you know, so they get away with it. And it gave it some extra charm. I mean, this film, it also has some it has every exploitation, check off the exploitation checklist. It has those elements in here. But you know, the Oily Maniac character himself is your standard. Now you look at him, vigilante. There's it's like, wow, he's going through even the whole great power comes great responsibility theme in a way where he says only use your power for good, because if you do it for evil, you're gonna get killed something horrible.
Oh my god, I just realized that character's name was Uncle Ba.
It was Uncle Ba. Yeah,
Wow.
that was the uncle, not his uncle. It was his crush's uncle, but still who he grew up with, you know, for a long time. So yeah, his Uncle Ba, who had the spell on his back. And it was great scene too, because in this jail scene, he goes, all right, here, you've got to protect my daughter, because the Yang family, who are the ones who did this deal, we find out later on, spoiler of this movie almost as old as I am. Spoiler, the Yang family is actually in cahoots with Mr. Hu, the lawyer, which in all honesty, if you see our hero, Shen Yuan, I believe that is, yeah, Shen's, if you see his lawyer in the first 20 seconds, you go, that guy's crooked, because he is totally dressed just like your stereotypical crooked lawyer guy. I mean, he's got, you know, the chains and the sunglasses, and he's got the you know, the snazzy suit. He looks more like one of the gangsters trying to roll Shen over for the coconut oil farm than he does look like they're to defend Shen. You know, but the guy, the lawyer's got a pretty good racket, doesn't he?
He's got a great racket. I mean, this is the thing that I think we're selling it short to anybody who may be watching this who hasn't seen the movie. which, why? But it's not all, vengeance and
Mm-mm.
horror and superhero type stuff. And it's not even really a slow burn. It's a film for adults where you get to see these kind of schemes and you really get to feel the corruption and the
Mm-hmm.
kind of the heartbreak and the helplessness of this paralegal as he realizes just who and what he's working for. Like there's this great scene where like kind of a famous musician, a singer, comes in to see the
Mm-hmm.
lawyer, and she got some breast surgery and she was horribly deformed. That part is comical because okay, first of all, the lawyer is like, well, I've got to see what the damage was
Yeah,
in order
this
to help
guy's
you
just
out.
he's just a lech. He's
Right.
just
So she opens up her shirt and it's like one normal looking breast, and then the other one is just so like comically doused in like acid. It's like, what was the surgeon even doing on that table? Like horribly deformed. But the racket is, he's like, all right, uh I need 50,000, or
well,
like,
the deal was with her. He said, "Well, I'm sorry, but this is an actual registered doctor." Even though this superstar said, "Well, she wasn't a registered doctor." He's like, "Yeah, actually, she was, and her lawyers will have lawyers, and you'll go through all of this, and you may not get anything. I think the most that you'll get out of it is $10,000. Oh yeah, by the way, my fee is 50%."
right.
So you're only going to get $5,000, but that should still be enough to find a doctor to correct that for you.
I think she came in wanting like 50 or
150. She wanted under 50,000.
$150,000.
Yeah.
And then he's like, you're not going to get that. The most you're going to get is 10, and I'm
Yeah.
going to take 5.
5.
And then so she that's the weird thing though. I wouldn't have even taken that deal. Like,
I would have gone
like,
to a different lawyer. I would have found a different lawyer. This guy's they're acting like he's the only lawyer in town. And this guy, yeah, I would have just found a different lawyer personally if she was, but this was her career. Part of her career was, as she describes it, which they set it up at least. She talks about how her career hinges a bit on her look and marketing. She fully acknowledges that. And this kind of has ruined her life. If I was her, I would have gone to another lawyer.
yeah, and I don't know how small this town maybe is. Maybe he was the only game in town because
He
he
might
had
have
the other
been. I
lawyers
don't know.
killed.
Yeah.
But what I loved is they strike that deal. She leaves. She's like, okay, 5 grand's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And then almost immediately, I feel like he opens another side door and brings in the surgeon.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about this movie is it's almost 50 years old or whatever, but they've got like the surgeon isn't just some like old dude, it's a woman. Like she's like a
Yeah.
professional
Mhm.
doctor working in this community, but she is unlicensed, right?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah. No, yeah, she's not
because
licensed.
he was lying
Mhm.
to the client, and
Right.
so he shakes her down for the $150,000. And then the second, like after they usher her out, because he's like, look, you make so much money, 150 grand is a drop in the bucket versus your reputation where you never work in this town again, you probably go to jail. And she's like, all right. And then he leaves, and then the secretary or the assistant, whatever, comes in, and
His partner.
his partner, I
Yeah.
guess, right? Because the
Yeah.
secretary is a different character.
Right.
Partner comes in, and she's like, $150,000. Like, yeah, I got to go pay this other person 5 grand, but
5,000.
it's still. For
Yeah.
10 minutes worth of quote unquote work, not a bad day.
He made $140,000 on the deal, and he's 45 because he only has to give 5,000 to the one woman after he got yeah. It's like, wow. And it's just like later on, the secretary who is the who has a thing for our hero, and the hero is somewhat clueless. He's like, no, I will always love the, and you're just like, dude, you're dumb. You are so dumb.
Dude, the dinner scene
Oh
where
my,
he comes over, she's made this
oh.
giant meal of like this
Mhm.
beautiful looking like chicken dish. And he's like, oh, I already ate it at Little Yu's house.
2 hours late. She invites him over at 8. He's like, okay. They cut. It's 10 o'clock. I believe, yeah, it was 10 o'clock. the food out is great. I'm like, dude, I want to sit down and eat that food. It's just this great dinner she set out. And dude just comes in like, oh, hey, oh, yeah, no, I already ate, and she made curry. And you know what? I'll only eat her curry because her curry is the best. And this woman who is his coworker, who really has a thing for him and who he probably has a better chance with having a long-term relationship with than his crush, she's like, oh, but I made curry. I'm just like, damn. But she didn't go off on him. I so wanted her to just take that curry and just throw it at the guy. I'm like, oh.
But you know what? It's the more we talk about the parallels to other things, the more I think he is sort of a Peter Parker type character.
Yeah, he is.
He's a bit douchier because he's got like this gigantic chip on his shoulder for all these different reasons, but you kind of understand where he's coming from. But he also has that kind of cluelessness around, the opposite sex of like he's crushing on someone, but there's this true love is crushing on him and he can't see it. But the other thing is like he's 25 years old. He's not like a 16-year-old in school.
Yeah, he's a young guy here, so he's not. He's still new to his feelings. Plus, you get the feeling this guy has had a tough life ever since he had the polio, because he has the crutches, and everybody keeps referring to him to his face as the cripple. And at one point, the cops, because the the Oily Maniac, when he turned into, he's killed a few people, bad people. These are bad folks. And the cops are trying to figure it out, because even though these are bad folks, they're cops and these are homicides. So they think they've tracked it down to the lawyer office, because one of the people killed was a member of the lawyer. It was a woman. Because we get this trial scene, which we haven't had a trial movie in a while, Ian. So see, there you go. I know we get this rather long trial scene of this woman who has accused a gentleman of raping her. And they give two sides of the story. We actually see this story. This is actually a fairly long segment. And then
we should stop. We should just pull over for a second and just clarify. The person who was accused did not rape that woman, because when you say the gentleman who was accused of rape.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no,
I know where you're coming from. It's just if he turns out to actually be the person.
No. I said he was a gentleman because he didn't actually assault this woman. He actually was seduced by the woman, or there's something in between. We don't know the true story. We just get their two perspectives. Again, another thing in this film, while they're doing it, they show the two perspectives, but you don't know exactly what happened. You do know, though, that the woman on the stand later on is talking to our crooked lawyer, and he says, hey, I made it look, I'm getting this much money. You get 20%. I get 80 of this, like $200,000. And she's like, and he's like, yeah, but I set this whole thing up so that you could get. She's like, yeah, you're right. And our guy Shen is right there. They're totally ignoring him because he's just paralegal, low on the totem pole, so to speak, the lowest rung. And so they're ignoring that he's even there. But he's just like, oh crap, she is crooked too. And so she ends up dying, which is what led the cops to the lawyer.
Well, let's talk about that courtroom scene.
Yeah.
Because this is what made me grab my notebook, honestly, because there's a level of artistry in the telling of these two perspectives that I was not ready for. It's kind of like the Rashomon thing, where you see when she's giving her when he gives his testimony first, the accused, and then she gets on the stand and gives her testimony. His version of the story is they were neighbors in this apartment building, like living like right across the hall. There's like 3 feet between their apartments. She's drunk. He's coming home. She's like falling over, and he helps her into her apartment. And then there's some seduction that happens. I was paying attention to the color scheme that was going on here. Because it's all pinks and reds and purples, and it screamed sex. So from his point of view, yeah, she was falling down drunk, but she was also, kind of grateful for him letting her, helping her in and all this other stuff. And I know that's not an excuse, but, I'm going to say it was a different time and all the other stuff. But in his mind, it was consensual, and she was, inviting him in for a fun time. when she gets up on the stand. And it sucks that she was, part of this whole corruption thing, because her flashback, all
It's
the color
brutal.
is sapped out of it.
Yeah.
Like, she's wearing a gray dress. It's
Mhm.
like the color of like drab wallpaper. He's shirtless. Even before they get
Mhm.
into her apartment, he's shirtless and just wearing these like drab gray pants. And they get in, and like the only thing of color is like the beads and kind of like
Mhm.
the purple bedspread. And it's just this violent, horrific, drooling attack. And like, oh my God. And I'm like, this is in the middle of this weird oil monster superhero movie.
Right? Yeah, I know, and that's what I was really digging about it is you get all these interesting elements in here that you don't expect to occur, you know? I mean, that you get this it's a longer trial scene too, you know, and they do some interesting things during the trial as well, to where she's about to confess about how she was attacked, and she's got to go into unfortunate graphic detail, or at least the
Oh,
lawyer
yeah.
sets her up to go into graphic detail in front of the jury, because trial is all a bit about shock and and that too. They didn't necessarily need to go into detail, but they do. But they ask the entire court to leave out of respect for her, and only people who had to be in the room. And I was like, That's different."
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. So even though she's going on trial and confessing her side of it, they still have everybody leave out of respect for her. And I was like, that was just interesting. I mean, this interesting courtroom case happens in the middle of bookend with a oily maniac guy choking out people left and right.
Well, it's interesting because if this were a case of like, Jodie Foster and The Accused, where
Mhm.
she was very clearly the victim of, rape, then you'd be like, wow, that's really cool and respectful that they dismissed everybody while they went through the unfortunate graphic detail in order to put this scumbag away. But
Mhm.
then you realize it's all part of the
The
attorney's
show.
performance.
Mhm.
He's like, I'm gonna clear it out so that the people who are in here, they're gonna have a certain view of it. The jury's gonna have a certain view of it. I'm gonna make her describe things in graphic detail, and I'm probably gonna be pounding myself under the table while I'm listening to this testimony because I'm a
Ugh,
freak.
yeah.
Um, and the fact that she went along with it, when she finds out she only got 20%, she's kind of crestfallen, because you get the feeling that she really traded what little dignity, like she took a lot of herself, put a lot of herself out
Mhm.
there in this fake performance because she thought she was going to be well off. And then it
Right.
turns out, I was like, no, you're just a lowlife who sent an innocent man up the river, and now you get like a few pennies.
Yeah, and, the real villain in here is this lawyer, Mr. Who, in some ways,
Mhm.
because he's taking advantage of everything. He's playing all the angles, and that's what fascinated me with this character. Was I'm like, he's a horrible character, and you want something horrible happen to him, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm digging how this guy is written, because the way he's written and acted, you're like, this is one of those villains you love to hate, because it's a great performance, and at the same time, it's a character you just can't wait to see something bad happen to him, you know?
Well, yeah, and since we are talking spoilers, the other cool thing that this movie does is he's the big bad, but he's not the final boss.
No, he's not. No,
He
he's
gets
not.
it,
Yes.
pretty early into the third act, in a pretty spectacular and funny fashion. He and
Yeah.
is it the same? Is it his partner? Or is it a
Yeah,
different
no,
woman?
that's his partner. That's the
Okay,
one that showed up after the doctor left and just
right.
paid the 150 out of a check because she has that much money. Um,
That's what I thought, but he's got so many women going in and out of the office. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, so they get back from this, from gloating about this shady business deal, and they're driving along, and they just decide to pull over to the side of the road so they can fool around.
Well,
And
they go to the makeout area. You get the idea, because there's two other cars of young folks
Mhm.
making out until the older folks come up to make.
Right, but that's the thing, is like they literally, it's not like make out point where it's like in the movies you see like it's a kind of a field over a cliff, and you can see the whole city. It literally just looks like a turn in the road, and this
It
car is parked around. Like anybody could come along, just rear end them, but I guess they were trying to do that in the car anyway. But
yeah.
so they're like getting it on, and Oily Maniac shows up, and he manifests as like slime, kind of
Mhm.
draping down over the car, and the woman is like, "What is that?" And then next thing you know, he's just in the car, choking and killing them, and then he like deliberately after he strangles the partner, the woman, he like bends her legs up into this obscene
Yeah.
V. There's something going on with this movie, man. I don't know.
Well, I think there might be a bit of a cultural disconnect there, but I think he did that to further disrespect possibly her corpse or whatnot in the
Yeah,
position she was in. You know, it was intended specifically so that they found her in that specific position dead, so that they would know that there was no, there was no mystery of what was going on in the car when they died before the oily maniac killed them.
because
Which
because she does mention something about when they're driving, like,
mhm.
oh, you got to get home to your wife or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because he's married. Our lawyer, go figure, to add another level of skeeziness to him, he is married. And he's running around on his wife with at least this one person. Who knows, maybe more, but and yeah, so the oily maniac wants to make absolutely sure there's no mystery of what was going on in this car. Um,
well, there's another an earlier scene involving our plastic surgeon that we mentioned,
yes.
because I brought up the V because it's actually a reprise of another visual,
Mhm.
so I don't mean to be making this gesture. But when Oily Maniac goes to catch up with the plastic surgeon, he kind of storms down through the ceiling. She's in the middle of performing a reconstructive surgery on this young woman who I guess is a street prostitute who her pimp had brought in to essentially make it look like she was fresh again.
Like, yeah, he made he he they don't directly say it, but for the most part, what the conversation is that they wanted to make it seem like she was a virgin because he had 4 other women, if she did it the surgery right, that he would bring in. So this guy is either a human trafficker or a pimp. So
Maybe
this
Spam,
doctor
yeah.
is this doctor is dealing with some serious lowlifes, and this is a lowlife, and he brings this woman in to get this surgery. Yeah.
But when he crashes down on into the operating room,
Yeah.
she's got her legs up in the air, and so you
Again,
see
yeah.
it's a weird visual. I mean, it's almost played for comedy in that sense. Like, what
I
happened?
I did I felt horrible doing it, but I snickered because he reconstitutes himself next to the surgery table where this woman is unfortunately strapped down, and our hero, and I'm putting in quotes, he just lifts the table and he just throws it aside with her on it,
That's
and
right.
he kills the 2 nurses assistant, a doctor's assistant, and then he kills the doctor. But it was just the way he just tossed the table aside, like, dude, she just, the innocence on the table, but he didn't care about that. He just wanted to kill the doctor and her 2 assistants, which he did, and that's when the detective was this detective, it was hilarious as well. I loved him. He was just like,
Well, yeah, there
yeah,
is no Oily Maniac. We caught the
th-
Oily Maniac. The Oily Maniac's loose. No, because
yeah.
there is no Oily Maniac.
There is no oily maniac. He was playing it up to the end that there was no such thing as oily maniac.
But here's the thing, because there are a lot of underworld figures in this movie.
Mhm.
The pimp who's waiting he's in the waiting
Lobby,
room while
yeah,
this is all
yeah,
going on. He makes a break for it once he
yeah.
realizes that there's a massacre going on. Did did he ever get caught up with, or do you know if he was part of the gang at the end who was like fighting the
Hard,
Oily Maniac? Because
hard
it
to
seems
say.
like he kind of got off
He
scot free.
he might have been part of the gang. I'm not sure. It did appear that he did get off scot free with that. What's hilarious with the oily maniac too is that his oily powers don't last forever. They tend to run out. So there's one scene where we mentioned earlier he needed oil. It's the first scene, I think, after he wanted to turn to take on a bad guy, but there was no oil. There was no oil, but he saw diesel. But it was funny because he missed the gas station closing. He shows up 3 minutes, not even a minute after the gas station closes, so he can't get his oil. So he covers himself in diesel, becomes an oily maniac. There's another scene later on where I think it was after did they kill his crush where with the hot oil where there was the construction guys. I think it was near
His
the end.
crush killed herself.
That's right.
And that was a really fucked up moment. I actually
my
had to go back
God.
and rewind that because I'm like, wait, really? Because I understand that. I think the problem is that this movie is so full of underworld figures. There really are only like 3 people who are good people in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And one of them dies in the first 5 minutes. That's Uncle Ba.
Right.
Because everybody else at any given opportunity, they're pulling down their pants to sexually assault someone or rip somebody's blouse off. So I would say it's not a flattering portrayal of this culture, but I think it's just that they're all,
It's just the underworld. It's
all villains.
They're doing the most shocking thing because these are bad guys, and they're hammering home the point just how awful these people are. Even the one that his crush, the person who our hero Shen, his crush, Lin Chung, I think it is the woman that he is still, he's got a feelings for. She's got a man, and he comes over to visit. This scene was like, I felt for the guy. He comes over to visit her after he saved her from one attack. Okay, because she was attacked by the Yang brothers. Because after her uncle dies, gets executed, the Yang brothers show back for revenge. They come in, they try to sexually assault her, but the oily maniac kills one, at least. The other one gets away, but he kills one.
And I'm sorry, I don't understand the appeal of this, but the whole idea of like, okay, brother, you go first, I'll wait outside. Like,
that was weird to say that just even more showing just how underworld these folks are and how skeevy they are, making you just want to see them get killed by the oily maniac so bad.
Just even if it was consensual, I can't put my head
here I'll go wait outside. I'm just like, oh, that's more oily than the oily maniac.
And also, how thick were the walls? Because this guy's getting straight up murdered inside when the
his
oily
buddy's
maniac,
not here.
Yeah, he's like just outside having a smoke. Like, oh, what? Is there something going on in there? Weird.
Yeah, it was weird. But so our guy comes back after he saved her, and even though she doesn't know he's the oily maniac yet, he's like, hey, I'm putting it out there now. I love you, and let's get married, is how he puts it to her. And she's like, yeah, I got someone else. And that dude shows up right after. He's like, hi there. And so Shen drifts away because her beau has come for dinner. Okay.
Yeah,
and the amount of time it takes our guy to get down the stairs and out into the yard and debate whether or not he really wants to leave. Her beau has already pulled off his shirt, skipped dinner. They close the door and go start getting very intimate with each other. Our hero goes back because he's going to say, no, I'm going to fight for it. He looks through the window and see. I'm just like, this is but what's even more brutal, folks, is why I'm talking like this. Part of my rebel is this boyfriend is also in. I mean, everybody's corrupt. He's in with the last remaining Yang brother who was looking for revenge on Shen. And so he was using this opportunity because he was also part of when the uncle died, this guy ended up taking over the coconut oil farm, and he ended up selling it to the Yangs for $3 million, which again, the lawyer was in on and all that. But that wasn't all part of the agreement. The other part was the Yang brothers also get a chance to go and have not so consensual sex with Shen's, woman, Lynn, the woman he cares for. And this happens at the coconut oil factory.
I think that's not Lynn. I think that's little
Or
Yue.
or little Yue, sorry, my
Yeah.
apologies. Little Yue.
Mm-hmm.
So little Yue, God, I apologize, folks. I'm a horrible host. Sorry. Little so little Yue, unfortunately, is cornered at the coconut oil factory, and Yang ends up getting his part of the bargain fulfilled, unfortunately. Very brutally, very disturbing. It's like, wow, this is kind of campy, greasy. And then we get this, it's like, oh, if the trial scene wasn't brutal enough where you just take you out of this going, okay, this is not expected, you get this scene in there.
And then she she wakes up like on this kind of like scaffolding, and then she sees the two
hook.
guys like she sees the
they're
guys like
drinking.
celebrating,
Yeah.
and she realizes that her boyfriend, her would-be fiance, whatever, is in on it and had set her up. And then she sees this little hook, this like mini scythe, like right by her head, and it's another great shot because she's like looking off camera at seeing these people, but then like our attention, we notice this weapon like at her eye level just before she notices it. It's not like there's a zoom in close up of this thing.
No,
it's very subtle, and then there's a close up of it once everybody's on board. And you're like, oh, okay, she's gonna go fucking get some revenge. But cut to later, our hero shows up to find that she's fucking killed herself with that weapon.
Yeah, she literally buried it in herself. And wow, yeah, it was like, damn. And she sold that moment too, because she had a look in her eye, and you're just like, no, don't. There's two ways this could go. I don't want it to go the way I think it's gonna, and it goes the way you think it's gonna go.
I didn't even think suicide. I thought that she was just, we're gonna get a nice revenge, like a double revenge picture.
That which would have been an interesting twist.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so it is unfortunate to end to her character, but that sends our hero off to where he doesn't care if people know he's the oily maniac or not. And he goes and he looks and he finds this construction site with this bubbling hot oil barrel, and he just crawls into it.
Is that where he runs past all the workers? Is that where we're at now? Okay.
Yeah.
And then he just like jumps into this drum and starts like just splashing himself in oil, and then he finally gets it like on his face, and he sinks down and comes back up. It is so silly, but it's also great because by this point, people have heard Oily Maniac in the news, and they're not sure if he's real or how big is he or what is he. And all of a sudden, this crazy guy comes, and like I think under normal circumstances, they were just like beating the crap out of him, but they see him jump in this oil drum, like, oh my God, is this it?
And then he comes out all in oil, like mega charged, and he goes after the boss who the Vang, not the boyfriend yet. It's just the other Yang character who survived the first attack. He goes after him, who has the most henchmen I have ever seen a boss have henchmen. I mean, this guy has layer upon layer of henchmen at his hideout.
In fairness, Tony Montana and Scarface had more henchmen.
Okay.
But this is the guy, he has the most henchmen who do not have guns.
Yes.
I don't even know if they're okay. The cops have guns in this movie, but all the criminals have fucking machetes, which is just great.
Oh, it's great that they have actual machetes. Like, oh, Jesus, that's more brutal. And he's got them all around. And of course, Oily Maniac, cue the Jaws music, as Oily Maniac sneaks into the compound in a wonderful way in his oil puddle. He leaks through the air conditioning vent, so he makes it past the first two levels of minions, and took a shortcut to the boss. in this wonderful scene that he fights, and then we get some actual fighting and some martial arts in here and some wonderful work to where this guy's pretty much invincible, the oily maniac. And there's some wonderful choreography in here with guys stabbing him and cutting at his arms.
He's like
And
regenerating. He gets his head cut off,
yes,
and it regenerates.
yeah, and near the climax of the fight where he's taking out of most of the smaller minions, and now he's taking on the tougher guys. They cut off his arm, and they cut to this wonderful stop motion claymation thing of regrowing his arm, which again, 76 folks. This was actually kind of cool to see, but the cutting of the head, I didn't expect it to grow back.
Well, but one of the things this has over modern movies is there would have been, I think, I don't know how you would have pulled this off, but there would have been some kind of a comment from the guy who was inside the Oily Maniac,
Oh
thing
yeah.
like, I just got my arm cut off and I regenerated. It's kind of like that Tony Stark effect when he's flying around
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Iron Man suit and you can see him in the HUD
yeah,
inside the
yeah.
helmet. But no, we are discovering his powers, like the extent of his powers at the same time he is, but there's no comment. It just is what it is. And it's just awesome. The effects aside, because yeah, you can see the stop motion, but even within the limitations of the types of animation
Mhm.
that they could do, you get a variety. It doesn't all look the same. The
Yeah.
regeneration looks different. The morphing into the oil that you mentioned,
Mhm.
the animation kind of looks different. There's even one scene where he disappears and reconstitutes himself. It looks like he's being erased from existence and
Yeah.
then kind of being drawn back in.
Yeah, he does that twice when the cops were shooting at him in the coconut factory
That's
later
right.
when he went after, Little Yu's, corrupt fiance. That's when he did that. But at the boss fight, this climactic battle where he fights a ton of guys and, yeah, gets limbs cut off and everything. We get to the boss guy. We even get a shitty dummy. It's very brief, but there's a shitty dummy because as he reaches the boss, he lifts him up in the air and he throws him down. But it's not the guy, of course, it's a dummy. And but they do a brief cut, so you just get the idea. And the editing in some of these scenes is fairly tight, in all
Well,
honesty.
yeah, I actually, this is another note that I wrote down because I thought of you.
Yeah.
We get the opposite of a shitty dummy. We get a really cool dummy doing a reverse jump because the Oily
Yes.
Maniac jumps up to like the second floor balcony and it's awesome. It
He
looks so
doesn't
good.
he does jumping a few times because after he's done jumping a few times because yeah, he jumps up, he supposedly jumps up to the scaffolding and takes out two more guys. It's like they do this a few times because there was a blackmail scene earlier where a guy on the dock followed him to his house and discovered that Shen was the oily maniac. But instead of turning him in, like everybody else in this entire town, he's corrupt and he wanted 5 grand. And there's this scene at the dock, this beautiful scene where the oily maniac comes in floating on water. He takes out guys in a boat. He jumps like 5 stories into this crane. Uh, and everything. And they do that reverse angle, they do that reverse camera work trick, but it works in this film quite a bit. And what's funny is by the time you get to the part where he after he's taken care of Yang and his gang, he goes after the creepy, fiance. At this point, whenever you hear the bubbling or see some liquid, you're waiting for him to come out by now because they've set it up so well. You're like, where is he coming out? Because they got the coconut oil coming in, but then they've got oil spilt on the ground, and then you see gas cans. You're like, when's this gonna happen?
Well, the thing I liked, it's almost, they almost did the Teen Wolf thing. I know this movie
Mhm.
came out like 8 years before Teen Wolf, but at the big game at the end, it was about. Oh wait, are we having audio issues?
I'm not sure. It
Hmm.
might be lagged at Facebook.
Oh, okay.
It could be Facebook.
Sorry. Sorry, Robert. Hopefully you can hear us soon. But anyway, at the end of Teen Wolf, of course, the whole thing
Yeah.
is like he's a werewolf and he's a star basketball player, but at the end, Michael J. Fox plays as himself. He puts his powers away.
Right.
At the end of the Oily Maniac, um, our paralegal goes after the last bad guy as himself,
Yeah.
and he's getting shot at. I think he actually gets shot in the shoulder at one point,
Mhm.
and he's like, "I don't like this thing that I've become, but I've got to kind of finish it, but I'm going to do it the right way. And it's just by pure accident because they're in this oil factory and the guy shoots all holes in all these drums trying to hit his paralegal target, that this oil just starts spilling out and then transforms him almost unwittingly.
Well, he got the jump on our hero. Our hero was actually going to get shot to death by the bad guy. It looked like the bad guy was going to win because he came around the corner, shoots him in the back, then shoots him again while he's on the scaffolding, and then he starts hitting the oil tanks, and suddenly he becomes Oily Maniac, and he's able to dispatch this guy. Just as the cops show up, because the coworker actually warned the boss guy that the Oily Maniac was coming, because she's just trying to keep the guy she really cares for from doing something bad further. She doesn't want him to kill any more people. He realizes they're bad guys, but she's still like, no, don't do this anymore. Come home, I'm gonna make you curry. She doesn't want that because she cares for him. So they show up because she predicted where he was gonna go. And that's where we get the wonderful disintegration thing, and then pops back up twice. But he starts attacking cops because he's in such a fury. He's such in a rage now as the Oily Maniac. He's just like, he doesn't want to take shit from anybody. And so who ends up dispatching him but the woman that actually is one of the only good people left in town? She's forced to light him on fire so he doesn't kill the cops, the detectives. And you get this wonderful special effect.
Well, here's the thing, though, because we've seen that. I think if the one flaw, I think, in this movie is they should have established that fire would have affected the Oily Maniac or would not have. Because
Right.
my theory is that, first of all, the paralegal, I think if the drums had not dripped on him, he would have been happy to die, because he was talking, earlier about how he's ashamed of what he's done. He's
Right.
killed a bunch of bad people, but he's still just become this thing that kills people. So he just wants it all to be over. But he's got it's kind of like again, the Incredible Hulk. It's like he's ashamed of what he is on
Right.
some level. So when he starts attacking the cops, my thought was, because the fire, if decapitation, if all this other, multiple stabbings, if nothing can kill this monster, he's like a
Right.
golem, right? Then fire shouldn't be able to do it, really. So
Mhm.
my thought was, because he turned around and started attacking the cops, who were actually, there was not evidence that they were corrupt. They were just kind of clueless and trying to figure out this mystery. I feel like because he turned against the side of good, that's what allowed himself to be destroyed by this fire. And he did die horribly.
Mhm. And that's exactly it. And I mean, that's why I love older films. They don't exactly spell it out for you, but that's what I always got the impression too, was the fact that regardless of whether or not fire hurt him before, it may not have. It is now, because he's going to die in a horrible way because of exactly what, the uncle warned of earlier. Great power comes great responsibility. And if you break that responsibility, you're going to die horribly in a horrible fashion. And burning to death is a very horrible way to go. And so, and this is wonderful, like disintegration, ash effect at the end, which was really great. And then I love it because, just like a lot of other older movies, it's over.
Yeah.
There's no epilogue, no extra, like seeing her walk away with the cops or whatever. It's
No
like
end credits, really.
no end credits, really. It's just like boom, done.
I also like that in that last shot, because you see the things, the body disintegrates and then the rest of it just kind of blows away. It reminded me of like the Dracula Hammer movies, where Dracula would be turned to ash and the only thing left is like the
Oh
vampire
yeah,
ring, is
yeah.
like the dust blows away. It's like dun dun dun. Yeah, so nice.
Yeah, it is. It's really nice, and this is a fun movie. I'm glad I watched it. I had not heard of it before ever, and I'm glad I watched it. I could see myself even watching it again with our good friend Doc, because Doc shares a love for Asian cinema, and kung fu flicks and that. And this is one of the martial arts movies, and this is one that I think he'd dig. If he may have very well seen it already, I'm not sure. Hello to Doc out there. Another interesting tidbit that is probably only amusing to me because I'm probably one of the only people I know in my group outside of Doc who have watched a film called Dr. Lamb. It is a crime thriller about a cab driver who goes homicidal whenever it rains. And there are some brutal kills in it. It's cut up, the version I have on VHS. I think Arrow or no, it's Unearthed Films. It may have released it or plans on releasing it. Danny Lee, who plays Shen, our hero in this, plays the detective in Dr. Lamb. Came out in 83 or 84, I think it is.
Wow.
I've got the VHS clamshell somewhere for the import that Doc gave me. And it's one of those make you squirm scenes. I mean, it gets pretty graphic as far as how he kills mostly women, unfortunately. But he wigs out every time it rains is what triggers him.
It's not like a supernatural thing where he gets like weird psychotic
No,
powers, or he's just deranged.
he gets triggered by rain. And yeah, that came out. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was off by 10 years. It came out in 92. It's a lot older. So, but he plays our hero here, plays the detective in that one, the inspector, and who's got some very hilarious moments in that movie. But it's called Dr. Lamb, folks. If you haven't seen that one either, check it out. And check it out either because we haven't spoiled everything about Oily Maniac. But even if we have, you've got to experience this film because it's fun. Your final thought with Oily Maniac there, Ian?
Yeah, I mean it's it's one of those movies where I pay like $3 or whatever to rent it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, well, shit, now I got to track down the Blu-ray. So I'm like paying $3 on top of that to own this thing. But yeah, it's totally cool. It's ahead of its time. And I think, people who are into superhero movies today or even horror movies, I mean, there's real value in checking it out. Yes, it's dated, but it's not that dated. It's dated if you're, I hate to be ageist, but if you're like one of those people who can't watch anything that's, more than 20 years old, you're probably going to have some problems with it. But if you grew up, kind of watching, 70s, 80s, 90s horror flicks, I think this will be kind of right up your alley. I do like the alternate title, which I see on IMDb, which was Zombie 12, The Insane Oily Freak.
Yes. The Insane Oily Freak, or the Oily Maniac, however you want to call it. I call it a very enjoyable film. Actually, it was far better than I thought it was going to be. Yes, it does have those elements that don't sit right today, which shouldn't even, they didn't even really sit right back then. They're made to be shocking, especially for the time it came out and where this film was released. Some of those scenes are even considered more shocking and prevalent in a lot of the exploitation films and films like this that came from, foreign cinema. So, it's interesting. I enjoy it. You can see a lot of precursors to things, and the fact that it came out in 76 kind of is like, wow. Because I'm telling you, you could, clean it up, but if it had a budget, this film would actually it'd really be impressive. But it was impressive enough for what it is. And yeah, check this out. And as I mentioned, if you don't mind some really graphic kills, you could check out Dr. Lamb as well, that stars the hero in this, because that film is intense. It's disturbing. It's disturbing horror, but it's actually a good film. It's just very, it's not like a ha-ha movie much. So
Doesn't sound like it.
No, but there you have it, folks. The Oily Maniac. I just picked it because of its title, and I always love when I find a film that I pick like that and I actually end up enjoying it. It's like, wow, how is this not on my radar sooner? So there you have it. We've got one more Maniac episode coming up, folks, and it is one I'm very excited to talk about. It is a film I've watched many times. I have the soundtrack to one, the actual soundtrack, not the stolen audio from a different film soundtrack. 2000 Maniacs will be next week, which is one that I definitely will be interested on people's opinions on. And speaking of people and their opinions, License to Shill, my good friend Ian, the floor is yours, sir. Shill away.
Well, thank you, Mark. I am Ian Simmons. I run kickseat.com. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I also have a YouTube channel and a TikTok channel. You can find, and on Twitter, just look up Kickseat and you'll find me. Also, I want to plug something I'll be doing this weekend. We were talking a little bit earlier on the Patreon show about the Oscars. They are this weekend. If you're watching this before the Oscars air this weekend, I'm actually going to be live streaming a portion of the Oscars on Sam Carrico's Film Fan Club show, which is going to start Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Central is when it's going to kick off. Just go to YouTube and search the Film Fan Club show. And yeah, check it out.
Sounds exciting. Do I need to hand in my film critic card? Not that I have a film critic card, because I may not watch the Oscars.
No, I mean, that's the thing is, if I were not, I can't say that if I weren't live streaming it, that I wouldn't watch it, but it's just such a train wreck with all of the cuts they're making and these weird decisions. I'd be on the fence between boycotting it and wanting to watch just to see what the hell, what do they end up showing?
It's another one of those tough choices because I want to watch it to support film on one hand, because I want to support, the films that have been nominated. They've been nominated for a reason. I'm curious to see who's actually going to win. A lot of people want to see Coda, but there are a lot of people throwing in that they figure Power of the Dog is making a strong campaign. So we'll see what happens. So that has me curious on it. But it's like all the other stuff I'm not really care about. So I'll probably just check live updates on the website or whatnot, because that's what I care about is who really wins, not so much the extra show that they end up coming up with trying to make it entertaining, because especially in many years, it falls flat. it just is like,
Well, that's the thing is, I don't even feel like they're trying to make it entertaining anymore. Not in the way that it was. I hate to say it, sound like the old man, but 30 years ago, back when they were really trying to put on a show. Now it just seemed like self-congratulatory dinner theater.
And I do agree, last year's was so boring as well. It was so I don't know. There you have it, folks. Oscars, of course, we're film folks, so we got to talk about it. But please check out our Patreon. We got a lot of stuff there. And I have something else to plug. Ooh. I want to plug the Sawdust City Fright Fest has submissions open now until June 1st. If you are an indie film horror filmmaker, specifically horror folks we're looking for. If you're an indie horror filmmaker and looking to submit, check out on Film Freeway, just search for Sawdust City Fright Fest, and you can submit your film. There's a reasonable rate to submission. And it goes till June 1st, and I highly recommend you submit. We've got a few submissions already. Wisconsin horror represent, and Midwest horror are really encouraged to apply. Sawdust City Fright Fest on Film Freeway. Search for it, submit, and hopefully we can pick your film to be in the festival in October, which is going to be the second week in October. So there you have it. Here does enough about us rambling. Thank you so much, folks. Stay crazy, because we still got one more week of Maniac March. So until then, we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.